everyone, and welcome to another episode about business trends and tactics. And today we have a special guest, Gayle, right? If I'm pronouncing your name
You
correctly,
are,
Gayle.
you've got it right.
Okay, perfect. Most of the times I can't pronounce names right. So, Gail, tell us more about yourself. You have such an I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile and it's very impressive, but I guess you can tell us better more about what you do and how you can help other business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Gayle Goodman Lynch, and like most people, I lead a very multifaceted life. In looking at my LinkedIn, I probably look more multifaceted than most because I run two separate businesses, two very different businesses. One of them that I've run for 17 years is to be an executive, basically a fractional executive. So I do chief communications officer services and chief marketing officer services in that business. And the business I launched a couple of years ago with my husband is a sign manufacturing company. So
Mm.
I couldn't have wound up in two wildly different types of business if I tried. And we did try. We thought, okay, we're going to try something new. And it's been a really kind of a marvelous experience over the last 24 months, learning how to grow a business that's very different from the kind that I've run for so long.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think it's also might be very challenging to do business with your husband. I personally have this rule, like no business with my relatives because I'm not sure I could do it. So I think you're very brave for doing that in the first place.
Yes, thanks. Well, and it's funny because people will say that to me, right? And we're in East Dallas, in Texas, and it's funny how many other businesses, like in our chamber, in our general area, several of them are clients now, that are also husband wife owned. And I think what makes it work is that if you get to midlife and you've figured out how to make the partnership of marriage work, right? So if you've raised kids together or you've been through ups and downs in the family life, you are probably better positioned to be business partners than people who are not family, I think. And that probably doesn't work for everybody, but it works really well for me and for several of the other husband wife businesses that I know. That seems to be the secret ingredient, is that strong partnership and that desire to share a goal and contribute your individual gifts. Because the other nice thing about a husband wife team is you don't marry someone who's exactly like you, right? We all marry our opposite, or very much our opposite.
Exactly.
And I kind
Yeah.
of joke, I'm like, if you built my husband Greg and me from the ground up, you couldn't make us any more different. But we work well together because he brings his strengths, I bring my strengths, and together they are just a powerhouse that drives our business. And that's what's marvelous about it. And I like him a lot too. I've been married to him for almost 25 years, and
Wow.
yeah, so we like each other.
Thank you. You know what? I just remember a funny story. Once my daughter asked me, Mommy, what do you and Daddy have in common? And I was actually thinking, because I was thinking, you know what? Only you probably.
Raising you, that's our biggest joint project right now. Yeah, but what a marvelous project, right? And that's why our kids wind up so great because they take the best of both of us. And they learn from each one of us very differently. And that's why having a two-parent household is a blessing for kids, I think, regardless of who those two parents are, because you wind up with two different personalities and two different styles that they can learn from and model.
Yeah, that's right. And Gail, for those who haven't met you yet, can you tell us more a little bit about your journey? 17 years in a business, it's this huge achievement. And,
Thank you.
people now jumping from one industry to other, like I'm seeing some people literally changing jobs every 2 years. I'm also been in marketing for 15 years, and I feel like that's all I can do. And maybe I'm not so brave to jump into something new, but can you tell us more about your journey?
I love the new. and I have like my entire life. I don't like to do the same thing twice is sort of my thing, right? I like the freedom to explore. I like the freedom to create. And when you work for somebody else, you are somewhat limited in that ability, right? And if you work for yourself, you can basically create any business you want. So I'm probably a great example of that. I consulted for so many years, and then I started a manufacturing company just because I wanted to. And I was intrigued by it, and it's been really successful in its first 2 years because I have passion for it. So is my husband, and we're working together on that. But 17 years ago, I was working in a corporate job like most people, and my job had actually required me to relocate to another state. And I remember when it happened, my husband and I were both like, ooh, that's kind of a big change. But, we don't have kids. We don't have a dog. We had 2 cats, and that was it. And we're like, we're pretty mobile. Let's give it a go. And he was actually working for a company out of the UK remotely. And that was back in the days when people didn't do that, right? So we thought, if there's ever a time to make this kind of crazy move, let's do it. And I was on that career path, right? Like I was climbing that corporate ladder, and I'm like, this could really propel me forward in my career. And it did basically the exact opposite. Because when I moved, as I was moving, I worked in home building, and the downturn of the housing building, the whole industry was coming to a close at that point. It was 2006, and that's when the bubble burst, and that was preceding the Great Recession, and it hit housing first. And as I was moving to Florida, my job that was supposed to be a promotion and an expansion of my career shrank a lot. And it was not the job that I expected when I got there. So literally, when I was driving for 2 days from Texas to Florida, that's what happened. And I thought, wow, this is not great. And prior to us moving, my husband and I had been married for a few years, and we'd kind of, he'd started the conversation of, should we start a family? Should we have kids? And I was like, oh, I don't want to be a mom. No one will take me seriously in my career, yada, yada, yada. So we'd kind of put that on hold for a later discussion. And after we moved and my job had basically disappeared, I thought, you know what? My job is never going to love me back. It's like I just realized that. It was like this aha moment. And I said to my husband, I said, okay, I think it's time to start a family. And we immediately were pregnant, like making that decision. It happened like right away. And interestingly enough, because that job sort of, disappeared on its own, I wound up moving back to the corporate headquarters here in Dallas and working here again. So we literally moved back into the same house because it didn't sell. It was just this crazy journey. And then my daughter was born here in Dallas. And that was 20 years ago now, because she is 19. And we never looked back. We didn't try to move anywhere else. But at that point, I realized, you know what? I don't want to continue to work for other people. I want to be able to be master of my own destiny. And I kind of put it out there. And within a year, I had started my own company, almost accidentally, because I lost my job because of the Great Recession. But it opened the door for me to work as a fractional marketing person. And no one could hire a marketing leader at that point. Because of the Great Recession, you couldn't hire people. I had one of the safest jobs in all the companies I went into because I wasn't an employee.
That sounds awesome. I think whatever happens, it happens for a reason, right? And
Absolutely.
I think you're probably very grateful for that you had the time to think about starting a family and put the work thinking aside. And also, like, so many people, they try to push their family to the later stage until it's like too late. I think, we are lucky that, like, to me as well, it's all happened just the way I wanted. And I lost a job exactly similar way like you did, but our company were shutting their office. I was like 8 months pregnant for the second one, and I couldn't move to another country for my job. So that was the time when I decided to work for myself. How did you manage? It's the hardest part for us women who have kids, especially, newborn babies. I literally started working 1 week after my daughter was born because I was too worried to lose my position. I'm talking about the first one when I was still working.
Right.
And I now kind of, years later, I regret it because I didn't have proper maternity leave, and I was like too much into corporate. I was worrying that I'm losing my position, And then with the second one, I started working for myself. I realized, shit, working for yourself is actually harder.
I'm the worst boss I ever had. What's up with that?
Yeah, you know, when you have a department, like if you have marketing department, you can delegate things, and then all of a
Sure.
sudden you work for yourself. There's You can't delegate. You have to do everything yourself. How do you find that? I think for us women is very challenging, and lots of women maybe would be watching us. And I personally know so many women who are kind of feeling guilty that they taking care of kids and they don't work. I always say, like my friend, she has like 3 kids. I said, listen, don't feel guilty. You do more work at home. It's even harder. Like for me, my office would be
Yeah.
escape. Like just a nice. It's just like I would be happy to go and escape from all the house thing I have to deal with. You know.
Yeah, right. I
Can
remember
you
that when
share a
my
bit
daughter
more?
was
Like,
young. Yeah, I remember when she was a baby, my husband was actually unemployed at the time. And of course, I was on maternity leave. And we used to fight over who had gone to Target last to buy something because we wanted to get out of the house. I mean, raising kids is hard. I mean, it's a big job. And I kind of did the same thing. I went back to work 2 months after my daughter was born. And in hindsight, three would have probably been better because at the time, people didn't really talk about that fourth trimester and how important that is. Like that 3 months, especially after a baby's born, there's still so much development for a baby, even outside the womb, and the bonding with a mom that I didn't really appreciate. And no one really talked about it. You know, you had the little what to expect when you're having a baby books and things like that, but no one ever said that part, right? You know, like the importance of that nurturing bond. And I bring that up because nurturing is something that we as humans have to have in order to function well. And I have learned over time that whether you got that as a baby or a toddler or a child or a teenager, you actually need it your entire life. And at some point, you have to make the shift to nurturing yourself. And I say that because when you mention the mom guilt, right? Mom guilt is like such a thing. We've all got it. And when we can give ourselves the grace of remembering that we are important in the equation too, and our needs are also important, and to love ourselves more. I mean, even saying things like, I love and appreciate and approve of myself just as I am. You know, regardless of where you might feel like you're falling short, if you can nurture yourself all the time, then you can see your world as, you know what, it's flow, right? You know, there's work, then there's kids, then there's laundry, and there's all these other things, but you don't have to feel guilty about not getting around to any of it because, like you just said, it happens in the divine right time. There is time for everything that's important, and that is one thing I have learned now that I'm in midlife. There is time for everything that's important, and just let yourself off the hook. You know, you don't need to waste time beating yourself up for having not done something you felt like you should do. In fact, I think should is the worst word in the English language, and it probably should be just eradicated because we put so much pressure on ourselves to perform when it's really not necessary. And we think everybody
yeah,
else is looking when they're really not, you know? That's the
exactly. Yeah.
thing.
I think that's a society thing because we're all looking at what's happening outside. We're looking at the other successful women who have careers, who have this, who have that, and we always kind of comparing. And we shouldn't really, right? We all have our own path.
That's Yes, such a great point. Is comparison is the biggest trip up in self-love. Because if you start comparing yourself to other people, then you are making yourself wrong somewhere. And there's no reason to do that. Because honestly, each one of us is the most unique soul we can possibly be. There is not a single person on this planet that has ever lived that is just like me. And nor will there ever be a person who's just like me to live in the future. Same with you. Same with everybody who's literally walking and breathing on the planet right now. If that's the case, then we should just embrace our own uniqueness and just give ourselves a break. You know, it's like I get to just be me, even if that's somewhat imperfect by other people's standards.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you worked with so many entrepreneurs. What is the biggest challenge you see holding their back today?
I would say the biggest thing in leadership, and I've done a lot of leadership work, and there was a time when leadership work, when you would go along structures, all these like leadership structures. If you act like this or you are this, then you're a good leader. And going back to this whole idea that we're all unique, that's really kind of BS. I mean, when you think about it, not everybody's gonna be able to fit into the same leadership mold. But I will say that the most important thing, especially for entrepreneurs, is love yourself more, give yourself grace, and then you expand your compassion for other people, but you're also showing up at your business as a better person. You're self-regulated because you're not going to be as prone to, fly off the handle or snap at somebody or get stressed out because last quarter's report looks like crap. You're going to be more conciliatory and kind to everyone, yourself included, and that builds a much stronger culture in your team. And it also helps build a culture outside of your organization with your customers because they can see and feel that energy. They know that you've got it together, but you've got it together in just a kind way. You're not putting on, you're just being you. And people
Yeah.
buy from people they like. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Was there a defining moment in your career where you completely changed the way you think about the business and leadership?
I would say it's been fairly recent because we started this new business, right? So I'd been running a consulting company pretty successfully for about 17 years. And, by the time I sort of made a name for myself as a consultant and I'd worked with enough people, honestly, a job would naturally come to an end because everything was project based in a consulting gig.
Yeah,
You're not
that's
supposed
right.
to be there forever. Yeah, there's an end point in mind. And when things would naturally wind down, something else would come along. And it just naturally happened because I needed new work. And then when we decided to start the manufacturing company, I kind of had to shift the way I thought about how I ran a company because there's so many different variables in running a business with cost of goods sold and like employees and all these other things that I didn't have to deal with when I ran a consulting firm.
Yeah.
And I will say I started to fall into that trap of future thinking and future fear because, there's either love or there's fear, right? And entrepreneurs deal with a lot of fear 99% of the time because we're worried about the future. It's like, oh my gosh, if I don't sell this big sign gig, or we lose this client, or this doesn't go right, oh my gosh, we could be shutting the doors next month, or I can't pay my people, you start freaking out about stuff like that. And I found myself kind of freaking out. I've realized exactly what fixes that. And I'm going to get everybody the secret right now. Being grateful for what you have right now is the key. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So if someone comes along and buys a set of channel letters from our company and they want us to put it on the building, we do an estimate, we send them a mock-up, they say, ooh, I like that, yes, okay, we're going to proceed forward with the work. Here's your deposit. So we always take a deposit of money. And there's a real tendency, especially when you're the owner and the seller in the business, to say, ooh, got that one, great. I'm going to hand that off to production, and then I'm going to go kill the next calf, right? I'm going to go hunt the next job. And to kind of not totally forget about these clients, but to not nurture them or touch them as often as you do during the sales process. And I realized that one of the reasons we are successful is because we actually do stay in touch with our customers personally, like the person who sells the job, either myself or my husband, and we keep them updated all along. And I've heard from so many people now, they're like, they've sent people to us because someone said, hey, I've got this sign company I'm working with, and it's almost like they ghosted me. I sent them some money and I never hear anything from them. And I realize when you are grateful for that client coming in and that money that just came to your bank account, and you hold that gratitude and stay present to that client and serve them well, then the future takes care of itself. Because most of the jobs we get right now, and we're not even 2 years old yet, are referral based. Because people hear, oh, so-and-so is opening a new store, and they'll be like, oh gosh, you're going to need a sign. You need to call those guys over at It's a Good Sign. And that I don't even have to go out and market as much. It's almost like my consulting company again. We've started creating a reputation for outstanding customer service, and it's because we care. And that doesn't mean that everything goes perfectly with every sign, because I will tell you, we have run into some crazy stuff, like stuff we did not expect with certain jobs.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
whoa,
so sad.
yeah, I didn't see that coming, but it's how we handled it. and how we worked through it and held hands with our customer and kind of made it work, that is the key. That's the difference. And I think that's applicable to any industry. If you are grateful for the stuff you've got, and you'll hear this in metaphysical teachings and stuff. It's like if you are grateful for what you have now, then you can grow it. And that is so true. But we are all so easily distracted by what we could be making, or I still want even more money. You still have to be grateful for what you have first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. What are you guys manufacturing, by the way?
Signage. So, I mean, we do a sign on a building, or we do vehicle wraps, or we do, window graphics, signs in parking lots, anywhere you drive along, you see a sign on a building, we do that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it's still pretty much related to the marketing, right?
Yeah, it's still very much a marketing angle, but it's definitely more of a tangible product than
yeah.
Selling marketing's hard. Unless it's website marketing maybe, or something like that. But yeah, when you say I'm a marketing person, it's like, well, exactly what kind of marketing person are you? Well, signs, people get that. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, signs. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a little easier to sell.
Yeah, and your tagline says, I help business owners make more money by getting them noticed. What does getting noticed actually look like in today's world?
Oh, it actually is so funny. I changed my tagline when I started the sign company, because I was like, okay, I've always helped people communicate, and that's in service of getting them noticed, right? So what do marketing and communications and PR people do? You try to get your client noticed. So I'm like, okay, well that tracks for that business, right? And then, when you put a sign on someone's store, you're helping them get noticed. So that's how that came about. And I think when you're talking about getting people noticed, it's really understanding, what are they trying to achieve, though? That's the point. It's like, you want to be seen, but why do you want to be seen? Do you need more traffic in the door? Do you need more revenue? Do you need more clients? Do you need, to go deeper with clients you've got? I mean, all these questions, right? Or do you need to attract new talent to work for your company? There's a lot of different reasons why companies are trying to get noticed. And that's where I start, either whether I'm consulting or whether I'm selling a sign. It's like, okay, what spells success for either one of those things?
Yeah. Are you working with any particular niche when it comes to your consulting, or you just work with anybody?
I typically like to work with founders who are about at my stage of business in the sign company, like that 2 to 3 years in. So it's like the teenage sized business or teenage business, where things are big enough, you're making enough money, you're growing enough that you're starting to get into the messy part of hiring more people, and they all have to kind of figure out how to get along.
The scaling part, right?
Yeah, the sticky part. This, like, when you have this great idea and you've got all this passion, and you hire like 1 or 2 people or your buddies, and you go all go no quit. You start a company up 2, 3 years in, it's like wildly successful and taking off. A lot of the times, even those people who started with you might be like, okay, I'm kind of out. I don't want to be maintaining now. I need to move on. Then you're having to bring in a whole bunch of new people that you may not have the same level of trust with, and then you're hiring a bunch of people that have to get along with one another. So it all kind of goes back to culture and how you're leading. And I like to work with founders in helping them see how do they need to shift their how they're showing up and what they're putting out in the world, so that they get the result that they want. Because at the end of the day, life is super simple, and this applies to every situation in life. What you put out is what you get back tenfold. So if you're putting out negativity, you're putting out, drama, you're putting out whatever, you're going to get all that back. But if you're putting out love, you're putting out kindness, you're putting out compassion, you're putting out respect, then you're going to get that back. So,
that's simple.
Yeah, and leaders, I think when we get to that 2 to 3 year stage, we start to see the cracks, like where we can't consistently do that well, like the kind of guess, like I'm a nice person, and but you start to get into situations where things get murky, and you don't feel aligned enough in yourself to handle it. It's usually a self-trust issue, and I help founders kind of like find that trust in themselves to handle whatever comes. Like, you are safe no matter what. And helping them figure out how do you find that within yourself and believe it, because a lot of people don't believe that, and that's where the problems happen.
Yeah, I know. I've been there too.
We've all been there. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. My staff will be watching this and they'll be like, yeah, yeah, the other day you were just like a total mess. And yeah, I sometimes am a total mess because that's part of being human.
Yeah. And when it comes to marketing and visibility, what do you think one mistake everybody making?
I think a lot of people try to double down on digital marketing. And we have this conversation in the sign community a lot, right? Because, one of the best ways, if somebody needs a sign, they're going to Google someone to get a sign, right? Or they're going to go to chat now. So we talk about GEO. I think that's an important component. But a lot of people try to rely solely on that in a lot of different businesses, not just signs. And I think that's a bit of a mistake because digital the digital world has no soul and no personality when you really think about it. It's ones and zeros. It's trying to get in front of eyeballs, and people get really hung up on how that works. If you are serving your customers well and leaning more into that PR side of things and business development, like making connections, showing up, speaking engagements, really that
Mhm.
traditional PR type stuff, that's where I love to play. And that's why I've done that for 20 something years now. I've always been a PR person. And I think it's because people get to see who you are and you get to contribute something to other people. Like this podcast we're talking about, you're like, I want you to be on the podcast to share your story because someone might hear something in it and they go, oh, that inspires me to think differently about something I'm doing. That's why we do these things.
Yeah.
And if you're out in the world doing that, especially as a leader and allowing your team to go do those things, then people see your company as the people within it and not just the company. And I'm not saying digital marketing is a bad thing because you do need that if you want to drive some leads. But I think the investment of time, that's easy. You can plug some money into that and let that roll. But the investment of time needs to be in making connections.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, I believe that you need to have everything, like everything complementing, and like, it's like a piece of puzzle where
Right.
each is responsible for like each component. I personally in the past were hiding behind my brand. Like I didn't want, I was always at the back end and I never want to go speaking, never want to go to webinars, never want to go because I kind of felt shy, and
Yeah.
just just now, I think a few years ago, I realized that this is not working anymore the way it's used to. Things are changing, and now you have to actually go and actually help other people, like, because we don't realize that we maybe feel uncomfortable about doing something. Or I always felt like I don't want to be salesy, I don't like sell to people. But I didn't realize that there are so many people who are actually very thankful that I was able to advise on something.
Right.
And that's what made me feel like, okay, that's what keep us kind of moving forward, I think, help
I
other
agree.
people and be heard and be seen. And obviously, so you just started the business recently, right? And I
The
work
sign
with
company,
yeah,
yeah.
so I work with so many businesses, small and big, and I had several startups in the past myself. And the budget is always a problem, right? So if someone starting a new business with a limited budget, what would you tell them to invest their time and money first?
I would say it really depends on the business. So, like taking the sign company, for example, we knew there needed to be a fair amount of monetary investment on the front end because we had to buy equipment and we had to get a shop. And we had, there's a lot of things that needed to go into that. So I would say, get comfortable with the idea that that money is gone for like a good 3, maybe 5 years, right? Because I think when people start a business, they think, okay, I can do it on a shoestring and it'll just start growing. And I think the reality is that if you put the budget too low, then you have to wait a heck of a lot longer for success because you're not able to bring the resources to you to get where you want to go. Because we sort of fell into that. We started with, the money for the business and we were sort of like, we're going to double down on this and we're going to grow that. And we spent too much money on the front end without sort of thinking that through and putting it in the right places. So I think there's a tendency, if you've got the money, to go and I don't want to say blow it. We didn't blow any of it, but we spent some of it before we needed to. But then there's also the tendency to say, I'm going to bootstrap and like do this super cheap and just make it work. But then you wind up having to do way more than you ever thought you would. Like you said, when you started a company, it's a much harder job than it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
know.
already a hard job, then now you've made it a 24/7 job. And that's not sustainable. So yeah, when I hear the term starting on a budget, I always say, I think you need to expand your idea to be comfortable with putting more than you think you're going to need to put into a business at the front end, but it will pay off. Most businesses are positive cash flowing and break even at least within 2 to 3 years. I am grateful to say that we made that in about 20 months in this business, which was phenomenal. So if you fund it right, you're going to get there faster, is the point.
Yeah, I actually even had some experiences where after consultation with me, small businesses decided that they can't they can't make it. It's a sad reality
Yeah, yeah, and it's not even so
because they
much
don't realize the marketing part. They think, oh,
they need to put
I
more
open
money into it.
website. Yeah, like, oh, I build the e-commerce. I have a full-time job. I build e-commerce. My dream is to sell online and don't go, to leave my full-time job. But then they don't realize that there's so much work behind, and it's marketing related. But it's like you have to plan your budget, and it's really interesting how people don't even realize when you ask them a questions how many items a day you need to sell in order to make profit after you spend on advertising, on maybe marketing agency and other things, and most of them cannot even answer that question.
Yeah, then there's the whole running your financial shop too. And I would say know your numbers. Know them back and forward. People can ask me, "Hey, what's the value of WIP in your business, which is work in progress?" I can tell them right off the top of my head exactly today how much money we have in work in progress. And then I can also tell you exactly how many estimates we have out there, general value, and how many prospects we're going after, how much that
Oh
is.
wow, it's a
I mean,
very, very nice. Like honestly, you're
yeah.
just saying this to me, and I have companies who work with me who's been in the market for 30 years, and they can't answer this question. Like their
Oh my
managing
gosh.
director cannot answer this question.
Well, and that's
Honestly.
going back to that whole gratitude thing. It's because I am grateful for everything on my whip board right now. Like everything that's out there working in that shop. Like I'm in my shop right now and it's outside my office and people are out there creating things and there's a whole board of jobs listed. I go and bless each one of those every morning and I thank those people for sending me that money and allowing us the opportunity to make that sign. And I know exactly how much all of it is worth because to me that's how I'm growing the business in the future is because I'm grateful for what I got right now. And yeah, I would say that's a mistake to not know how much money you have flowing through your business at this point in time.
Wow. Talking about gratitude, can you give a little bit, like maybe a few tips how to actually do it? Because even gratitude is something we all have to learn. This is something nobody teach in business schools and universities, and it's really such an important role in for every business owners. Is there any, like, for example, I was talking to Linda Fisk and she was telling me that she writes something on a table every time she gets some like a nice comment from her members that they achieve something because of her, and she have like a thank you notes writing down. Do you do anything like this, or maybe you have some small tips how to actually do that?
Yeah, I would say just all of it starts with you, right? And I would say the first thing that I do every single morning, and I have done this for years, is I wake up grateful. I think about everything in my life that I am grateful for before I even get out of bed. And if you start your day thinking about all the things you're thankful for, it's real hard to have a bad day after that. Like something's really going to come knock you off course to just sort of snatch that away from you. Not that it can't happen, it can. But it feels good. And also to just feel the feeling of gratitude. It feels good to be thankful. Right? I mean, if you think about it, it's like when you really sit and think, I am so thankful for this. It just there's a feeling inside of you that you can't explain because it just feels good. And I literally live my entire life under the idea of I want to feel good as much as humanly possible. And yes, things come along that sort of knock us all off course from here, time to time. And there are some really awful things that can happen that really knock us off course. But by and large, I can sit any day and I think if I'm kind of in slumps or I'm bothered by something, the first thing I think of is what thoughts can I be choosing right now that would make me feel good? And sometimes it's literally just, the situation is tough, but I know it's going to work out to the highest good of all concerned. And I am safe in every situation. I am safe no matter what. And it just makes me feel good. And then I will literally move into gratitude, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to learn something new about myself. Or I'm thankful for this person who just came into my life and told me what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it, and just practicing it consistently. And don't beat yourself up when you don't. That's the other thing. I advocate to people, don't ever criticize yourself. And some people are like, well, how do you ever get better if you never criticize yourself? If you never criticize yourself, you're going to constantly get better. I promise you. And you will do it faster because you stop beating yourself up. We spend way too much time and so much energy telling ourselves that we're wrong. When
Yeah.
in the end, we're just right. We're right for us. It may not be by other people's standards, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think we spend more time on negative thoughts rather than positive because somehow it's plays in our mind more often. I don't know how
Yeah,
to explain that, but we concentrate more on negative and difficulties rather than positive and, happiness. I don't know, maybe that's the way how we operate. I don't know really.
I think we
Um,
learn it when we're little too, because there's a lot of correction when you're little, and there's a lot of expectation. You got to sit at your little desk at school and do some things a certain way. We're used to living in boxes, and it's because of just how we were brought up. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, because structure is not a bad thing. But we've lived in a very structured world, and it's kind of hard to get out of that box. I mean, literally, they always say out of the box thinking. That's so trite, but it's kind of true. I mean, it's like you got to get out of the box of limitation to see the possibility.
yeah. Uh, every successful entrepreneur obviously have setbacks. Can you share like one challenge you overcome and what it taught you?
That situation I described when my company moved me out of state and then we wound up moving back here, it was
Mhm.
probably from a financial perspective an unmitigated disaster because I got stuck with two houses, and I couldn't sell either one of them in the housing market that we were in. And that was just financially hard for my husband and I for several years. And I would say most of the big setbacks in my life have all been around a fear of not having money. And that's a fear 99% of people share, right? Because we're all worried about, okay, what happens? How many times have we run it down? It's like, oh, if I don't get these clients, or, my house burns down, or what if this happens, or if the hurricane comes through, I'm going to be living in a box on the street. I mean, how many times have we run that down? And I, what that's taught me when I started to become aware of that pattern is that that's my opportunity to invest in the trust of myself. It's just like, you know what? No matter what bad thing has happened to you in your life, you've gotten through it. Like you're still here. You still have a roof over your head. You still have clients. You still have your husband. You still have your family. And back to gratitude, right? And it's like be grateful for what you got, and don't worry about what you don't have.
Yeah, that's right. And great businesses are, built by great leaders. What qualities do you believe every entrepreneur needs to develop? Apart from gratitude, since we talk a lot about gratitude.
Right. I would say really investing in self-regulation principles, like how you show up, not just for yourself, mainly for yourself, but it also extends all the way throughout your company. And I've worked with leaders before who just kind of didn't really realize how much their behavior and their example was impacting everybody else in the business, and how much people look to that leader to model their own behavior. In fact, I had one client who was just like, oh, I can't imagine people care about, how I do X, Y, or Z. And sure enough, once he started paying attention to it, he's like, oh man, people really do care. So I think from a leadership perspective, if we're showing up, and it sounds trite to say your best self, but your most regulated self, like you're paying attention to, how your emotions show up at work. And that's not to say you can't get angry about things and such, but minimizing that outsized anger, like that, figuring out where your triggers are and really doing whatever work you need to do to minimize their impact on other people. So I'm a great example. I used to be the most angry person on the planet. I mean, people are like, "Oh no, that's not true." I'm like, "No, I was mad like all the time," and I was snarky and biting in my humor, so people would think it was funny around the office. But man, no one ever wanted to cross me. They're like, "Oh God, don't make Gayle mad because it is going to really be hard on you." And as a leader, people were they were terrified of me. And then when someone pointed that out to me, I was like, "What?" And I couldn't believe it. And that's when I really was like, okay, you know what? How I'm showing up in any room is super important to my long-term happiness, but also the happiness of other people, especially the people who work for me. So I think that's self-regulation. And I just use the word self-regulation because for everybody that might be different. Maybe somebody's too timid to deal with conflict. Maybe you're going to know the answer when you ask yourself the question. It's like, where can I be better regulated, show up better for my staff? And I swear the answer will come out of nowhere. You give your brain a problem, it will come back with a solution, because our brains are wonderful tools of creation, and that's what they're there for. It's like, I ask myself questions all the time, like, how am I going to do X, Y, or Z? And then I just let it rest. Like, I don't think about it again, and then within a day or so I'll have my answer. It just comes to me. And that's just trust in yourself and trust in the process, in the flow of life. Life is for me and never against me.
That's very valuable. Trust in yourself is really important, and self-confidence as well, right? Sometimes
Yep.
although we may not show it, but deep inside we all like not so confident. And I still remember how it stopped me from doing something because I wasn't confident enough.
Right.
So really,
And if you had it all to do over again with more confidence, then, where could you have gotten? But back to not beating yourself up, it's like, but, gosh, life's a long journey. I mean, I'm 53 years old and I joke that I'm going to live to be 100. I joke about it. I know I'm going to live to be 100. So I've got almost just as many years ahead of me as I have behind me. I got every single day, 365 days a year, I can make different choices and create a completely different life any given day, any given moment. And when you think about it that way, it's like, you know what is stopping me? You know?
yeah, that's right. I would like to talk a little bit about the future of the business. Obviously, AI is changing the way business market communicate and operate. How do you see AI impacting entrepreneurs for the next few years? And now you're working for production and like manufacturing is obviously getting affected as well, I believe, or maybe it's
Yeah.
not. What's your...
No, actually, I think it does affect, it affects every kind of business, because AI is sort of like your brain. It's a tool. I think a lot of people rely on it too much and they try to get creative with it. But I will say AI has literally no soul and no sense of humor. So it's never going to replace humans in creative work, and the people who are trying to make it replace creative work, like design and other things, that kind of makes me sad. Because I mean, I'll use it to write some things for internal purposes, but anything that goes like out on our social media and other places, we might draft things in AI, but there's always a human touch on it because I want to put our personality into it. But what's nice about AI is you can train like chat to know your voice and to write things like you would write it, and it's pretty freaking remarkable. You still want to engage with it and look at it, but I'm pretty surprised at how it comes back. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I would have written it. So it just saves me time, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with saving time, and it's just my personality gets put into things because I've invested the time to put it in there. So I think that's important. We use Copilot in like our emails and things like that because we're a Microsoft environment at the sign shop, and that actually helps us, scrub emails and make sure we're not missing important things that need to be done for a client project, or if stuff doesn't fall off the radar with that. And that's highly valuable because when you're doing a bunch of different things, it's easy to forget something. It just is. We're humans. So I think we use it mostly as a tool. I don't like the idea of AI replacing people completely. I mean, it might replace some roles, but those roles need to be transformed to still connect to AI. I don't think AI should completely replace anybody, because like even mock-ups, we have an AI tool that we use to put, it'll like take the car out of a picture so we can put a sign up on a building. But even then, our designer still tweaks it, because it's not 100% perfect. Maybe one day it will be, but it's just an assist, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's right. And I know that you also automating your business. You use a software automation. Have you started using any automation for your manufacturing business, or it's still? Tell us
There's
more about it. Just
Everything
curious.
is bespoke when you make a sign. It pretty much is. Now, we can set some machines to work, like a CNC router, for example. You put the pattern in there, you put the substrate on the machine, and then it actually does the work. And you can walk away and go make a sandwich and do the rest of your job and
Mhm.
come back, and then it's done. So that's automation from my
Mhm.
manufacturing perspective. I think from the marketing perspective, what's nice is being able to go back into the CRM and just make a quick touch point with people we haven't talked to maybe in 6 months, and it can send the email for me. And people are used to getting those kind of automated emails like, hey, just checking in, you had asked us about the sign earlier this year. Did you guys ever build it? Happy to help you out if we still can, or if you've got a new project coming up, we'd love to hear from you. That kind of thing. We automate a lot of that. But a lot of it I don't automate very intentionally
Mhm.
because I want people to know us as humans.
Mhm.
And we're not so big that we can't have a project manager or salesperson who is connecting directly to the customer on every email, every phone call. I'm a big fan of phone calls. A lot of
Mhm.
people aren't, but I am, because you get so much more done in a phone call than you do an email. Because I can't tell you how many times I've traded emails 8 to 10 times, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to call this person. And then it gets solved. And it's like, if I just done that to begin with, I'd have saved literally 8 emails, but we've all been there.
Okay, that's interesting. Talking about phone calls, I personally never pick my phone. Like if anybody calls and I don't know who it is, like most of the times I don't pick up my phone. And sometimes when some people, like from the people who I know, call me without actually texting me that they're gonna call, and I feel like, oh, that's rude. It's not like I'm sitting here and waiting for your call. You have to tell me. I'm a very busy person.
That might be a generational thing too, because I'm Gen X, so I was born before cell phones. I was even born
Yeah, me
with a
too. Me
VCR,
too.
right? Yeah, so I didn't grow up with technology like that. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I think people are starting to gravitate toward back more calls just because so much gets lost in translation when it's just technology. Texting can be read the wrong way. I can't tell me anytime I've got a text, I'm like, is that person like mad at me? And they're not. It's just it comes off very abrupt and very, you know, like
Yeah,
not friendly.
human touch is very important.
The
That's
human touch is important, and that's why, like getting together. I mean, like we're doing this podcast, so we feel like we have a human touch because we're using technology to see one another and have an actual conversation. It's kind of like a phone
yeah,
call when you
yeah,
think about it. But even Zoom meetings are not the same as like an in-person meeting, right? You get so much because you can feel other people's energy. You can. There's just so much gets more done when people are together. And
yeah.
post COVID, I think we're all kind of craving a little bit more of that together time. Because
I think so, definitely. I am seeing now more events coming up. I'm seeing now more, like I personally get more invites to speak at some, events. And I feel like events are really great now. Like before, we thought it's dying because of the online thing. But
right,
now I feel like it's going back to where it was actually. And I was even imagining now, like me and you speaking, and I was thinking, what if it will be two AI speaking? That would be funny. Like it would
right.
it wouldn't be interesting at all because like there are some funny videos I see where like they make dogs speaking on a podcast. That's a bit more
Yeah,
funny than
that's clever and cute, but but nobody sees that as like, moving humanity forward, right? And AI is not going to move us forward. Only humans can do that. And AI just regurgitates what it can find and what it knows. So you're always going to have the spark of human creativity to get anywhere because AI can't create. And someone might come
yeah.
along and say, you're absolutely wrong, Gail, but I'm going to tell you, I don't think AI can really create. It can only assemble. Assembling is fine for most applications, but if you need to truly be creative and move forward, you need a human brain and you need a human soul.
Yeah, that's right. I just feel like I really get huge help to do things faster right now. Like if I need to do slides in the past, it would be my designer copywriting. I would spend like few weeks to do just a presentation for the webinar, and now I have AI. Everything is done literally within few hours, going back and forth, and like I save more money and time,
Yeah,
but
there's nothing
it's
wrong with
still
that.
Yeah, it's still not perfect. It still need, my touch, but it just saves lots of time to do that. So I think
Yeah, or
it's
maybe you
cool.
invest the time on the creation of the concept and the idea and let AI just spit it out in a form that you can present. That I think that's perfectly valid, honestly, because I don't like to spend hours making slides either, because I used to do that back in the day. Actually, I'm so old that we used PowerPoint initially. We would actually make it on 35 millimeter slides. This is back before laptops had, projectors and stuff like that. And we would actually put them in a carousel, and they would use a slide carousel, and we'd use PowerPoint to create that. And I realized, gosh, what a big waste of time, right? To like put it in PowerPoint, then having to make slides out of it and put it in a carousel and ship it somewhere so someone could use it. I mean, the world moves a lot faster.
Yeah, that's right. Uh, Before we wrap up, what's the best piece of advice you ever received, or advice you can now give to any entrepreneur?
When I was leaving my first job and my first networking contact in Dallas, and I think it was lunch or coffee or something, but I said, I'm kind of scared to go take this new job that I just got offered
Mhm.
because it was a big promotion. It was a big responsibility beyond what I'd been doing before. And he said, you know what? Life is very simple. You need to go and do the thing that scares you in order to grow. And I was like, yeah, I never forgot him saying that. And it's so true because the love and fear, you want to live in love more than fear. But sometimes fear is a real motivator because it points to where your growth is going to come from. And
Yeah,
I loved that.
I can relate to that as well. Some of my friends tell me, Vera, you're very brave, how you do this. Like, I moved one country when I was very young. I didn't know anything. And then I moved to another country and then travel and here and this. And then my friends tell me, how do you do that? But I follow same principles. Like, if you feel like you're scared of something, you have to do it. Even recording this podcast. Like,
I bet.
I was too shy to speak on a camera. My first podcast on YouTube, I just went to my client in Dubai. I went to his warehouse. We spoke like just with my phone, no professional camera or anything. We just, and we did record a podcast at his office with his employees. He showed me around, he showed me his warehouse. And that was my first podcast without any like professional camera, anything. And that's how it started. And I was scared. Like, I don't know even how to properly speak, you know what I mean? And I follow the same principles and everything. Like, whatever scares me, it means I have to do it. I think it's kind of a sign that you have to do it.
I did the same thing when I started my podcast, the Choice Wisdom podcast. I didn't want to deal with video and all of that, so I just did it in audio. Because at the time, Spotify didn't do video. This was 3 years ago. It's changed a lot in just 3 years. But I was like, you know what? Start somewhere, and that was what I did. So for the first couple of seasons, it was audio only. We only went to video earlier this year, and YouTube as well.
Yeah. My first webinar was when I used to work for corporate, and I was invited to a webinar to be like to represent the company I was working for, and I was in my 20s at the time, super shy, and they didn't know obviously that I never done webinars, and I was super terrified. But at that time, webinars was without videos; it was just audio,
Yeah.
and I was like, thank God they can't see me because I was like inside.
I know. I remember we used to watch the Jetsons when we were kids, and we were like, "Oh, no one's ever going to have a TV to talk to somebody else." Like, well,
Yeah,
okay, it did happen.
yeah, and it just
We're like, you don't want
and
to have
just
your hair together and look good.
yeah, and just before that webinar, they're like, "We have 500 people attending." I'm like, "Holy shit, what
Oh,
I do?"
wow.
Like, I'm so glad that at that time there was no cameras, they couldn't see me.
You can psych yourself out completely. It's like, don't tell me how many people are on. I just need to do what I need to do. I need to share what I need to share. Love that.
Yeah, yeah. So, looking ahead, what's next for you? Are you going to still keep co-equal network and like working with your consulting business, or are you going to completely move to your manufacturing business?
My manufacturing business has sort of taken the bulk of my experience and time for the last couple of years, but I still have a toehold in the consulting business. When the right client comes along, I take them on. And I'm finding that as we grow the manufacturing company and I am less in the day to day, then I will probably lean back more into the consulting company. That's why I never got rid of it, because I know just from having worked with other entrepreneurs is that, especially when you're a founder, at some point the business kind of outgrows your magic, if you will. You still need to sprinkle it on and be around, but you can't be in the day to day anymore because you wind up actually being more of an impediment than you are a helper. Especially once you hire the right people and they're rock stars, just let them go do what they need to do. So that's why I never have given up the consulting company. I think I will probably go back to consulting, and then, but I will continue. And as I consult with people, it's like now I have an even broader range of experience, having like now run a company that's a lot more like the companies I've consulted with in the past. Now I have like a lot more practical experience, having been the person in the shoes that I'm coaching or I'm consulting with.
Yeah, that's right. So for anyone who would like to get a consultation from you, how they can find out, we will leave links below. Is LinkedIn is the best channel to get in touch with you, or you have
I would
some
say
other links?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's my favorite, but I also run Choice Wisdom Podcast. ChoiceWisdomPodcast.com is the website, and there are plenty of socials for that as well. You can find me pretty much either one of those ways, or you can go to it'sagoodsign.com. You can find me there too.
Okay,
I'm
guys.
everywhere.
Well,
I'm just everywhere, Vera.
okay, perfect. So whoever is listening, if you wanna get in touch with Gayle, we'll leave links below. Don't forget to click like and share, and hopefully someone get inspired from our podcast. And thanks so much for joining me today. It was really interesting. Personally, for me, every time I speak to people, I get some insights for myself as well.
Same
So
here.
it's not only like, people who's watching is learning, I'm learning as well as we go. So thanks so much for being here.
Me
And
too.
by the way, I do fly to Dallas every year. Maybe I can even visit at some point your production and we could do podcasts there on the spot.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, let's totally do it.
Yeah, I will do that every October. I'm in Dallas, and this time I'll be there for like 3 weeks.
Oh, yay.
So
Let me know.
maybe see you there at some point.
Cool.
Okay, thanks so much,
Thank
and
you.
see you soon.
See you soon.
I'll just pause it.